You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
You like that motto, huh? Yeah. A lot of people are amused by it. But we're not going to listen to my opinion today. We're going to listen to y'all's. So we have two representatives from Joshua ISD, and then we have their chauffeur, Kyle, over here. And he's going to do what he does best, which is, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so y'all introduce yourselves.
All right, I'm Jolynn Augsburger, and I've been with Joshua ISD for 29 years now. Started there as a elementary school teacher, and then was an elementary administrator, and then moved over to the central office about 9 years ago. And I'm a chief academic and technology officer now.
Wow, 29 years.
Yes.
That's impressive. Because, I was with Burleson for 28 years, and that's not common anymore to see somebody stay in the same district, because a lot of people move around for various reasons. How about that? And you are?
Hi, I'm Michelle Snell. I'm the Executive Director of Secondary Curriculum and Instruction. That's a really long title. We like to give long titles in Joshua. I've been in Joshua for about 13 years. Prior to that, I was in Fort Worth ISD as a teacher and an administrator in Fort Worth, and then I came to Joshua as an administrator at the 9th grade campus before moving into central office probably about 9 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah.
And you told me right before the show, this is your second time in the studio. You've been with Jonathan Moore, who y'all poached from BISD with much tears and anger, but whatever else. He's
We don't mind stealing people.
No. Here's the thing. I was telling y'all superintendent when he was on last month is that when I moved to Burleson, I started teaching in 88 and I moved here in 91. Joshua was like just a country town, right? And now it's much different. And the improvement in Joshua ISD has been significant over the last 2 decades. I mean, the scores will tell it the story, the scores themselves. And I always thought, y'all were like, if we ever got sick of BISD, y'all were like the promised land. I could always go to Joshua, and they pay more, But what the problem was? There was very few openings.
Right.
And that tells me a lot.
It does. We still have a very low turnover rate. Our teachers, we have many teachers who have worked there and retired there because it's a great place to be. So we're super proud of that and really want to work to retain all of our staff.
Well, there's a colleague of y'all's that I used to teach with at Hill College, Yancey, the history teacher.
Love Miss Yancey.
Yeah, right. And I didn't encounter her in Joshua ISD, but in Hill College. And one time I asked her about that. She said, good luck trying to get in if that's what you're trying to do, which I wasn't so much, but I just knew that there's always like that thought in your head that if you ever had enough of BISD, there's always JISD and that kind of thing. And I don't really recall Joshua ISD being the leader in academics until really about 10 years ago. And so y'all really have made some strides. What do you attribute those strides to? Well, wait, before y'all do that, keep that question in your head. I need to talk about the sponsors, right? Because they pay for this, and sometimes I get all involved in the conversation, and I say, hey, they pay the bills. I hope y'all been to Hart Place at least once.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, there's one right down the street now. I don't know if y'all noticed it. You probably don't get to Crowley all that often.
I live in Crowley.
Do you now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good for you. So you've seen our place too go up. And, I go here at least once every couple of weeks. The men in my Sunday school class and we've given up trying to solve the world's problems, so we talk football.
There you
go. But our place also, Gina's Pizza. Gina's Pizza as a business has been there since early 70s. And
eating lots of pizza there.
Yeah, and then Otto bought it about 3 years ago, and he's really made it into something nice. It's a good place to do business and, I don't know, have a pizza and a beer and relax and whatever else. Also, my friend John Williams over at Old Pro Roofing at 817-734-2756. These are Burleson people. They're over in Old Town. Have them check your roof out. It didn't cost you anything. And they'll tell you what's going on. If you don't need repairs, you won't be sold repairs. And if you need a new roof, they'll help you with the insurance company, which can be a wrestling match. I have a pretty good insurance company, Texas Farm Bureau, but John will tell you not all of them are quite as cooperative. So you need somebody in your corner. So 817-734-2756. And my friend Jeff Kelly, he was on a couple of weeks ago to talk about real estate. 817-781-0546, or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com with the Wethington Agency here in town. If you're looking to buy or sell, he does a lot of Joshua business because I understand y'all are growing quite a bit. You and Godly.
Definitely growing.
Do y'all's territory intersect with Godly, or
Yes.
some territories kind of like what y'all do with Burleson?
Yes, we have over 75 square miles. We intersect with Crowley, Burleson, Joshua, Egan, and Cleburne. And Godly, those.
It's odd though, because you tell people from out of state or whatever, okay, now you're in this school district, but this city and this county, but not. So when
it gets very confusing.
You need somebody like Jeff to tell you if you're going to be buying out in the country, you don't know which school district you're going to be in, and that makes a difference.
Right.
Are y'all an open enrollment school, by the way, or district?
Yes.
Okay.
We do take transfers.
Okay, we didn't for a while, but now we do. That's something that Dr. Jimerson had put in. Used to be the only people out of district were kids of the teachers. But other than that, and it was really funny, is that if you had teachers that lived in Joshua, they kept their kids at the Joshua schools. Okay, that tells me something. All right, anyway, 817-781-0546. Also, my friend Big Al Warner over at the Hub, if you need business cards, they're $65 for 1,000, which I don't know if I could ever give away 1,000, but I could do my best. Also, trifolds, I've used them before for promotional items. So if you want hats, cups, shirts, pens, pencils, you name it, he does it. He does all sorts of stuff. So give him a call at 817-616-8761 or bassprinting.com, and they'll set you right up. We also, one last one, we have a couple of nonprofits we throw in. I don't know if y'all are familiar with 88 The Journey from Keene.
Love The Journey.
Yeah, my wife does too. And so we had this rule. If she's in the car, that's what we're listening to. Like, wait, I want to listen to sports talk. Well, that's too bad. So anyway, you're probably familiar with it as well, I'd imagine. It's a radio station out of Keene that does mostly Christian contemporary music and whatnot. And there's a lot of choices out there, so it's a good one. There's a couple of nonprofit events going on. We'll just do those at the end. Okay, now we can get to it. What was I asking you before? I lost my train of thought.
Why we're so good.
Yeah, that too. Well, okay, why would you attribute the growth of Joshua ISD as a school district from basically back in the early 90s was a country town, country district, now to one that offers all these different things that they didn't offer before?
I think people are still looking for that small town feel, but with all the offerings, with what a big school district can offer. And we've really worked hard to make sure that our students have those opportunities that, districts that are larger than us provide. And so just the atmosphere of our schools, it feels like home. And that's what I feel like our teachers feel like it's a second home to them. And that's why they stay many, many years. And it's a great place for you to, bring your kids and raise your kids there.
Is that, you would agree with that, I'd imagine, Michelle?
Yes. So my daughter went to Joshua schools K through 12 and graduated from there. And I love Joshua. I started in Fort Worth because that's where I was born and raised. And so I wanted to get back to my community, but I ran to Joshua as quickly as I could. And
I can imagine Fort Worth is having issues now, and but that's a different conversation. One thing I noticed also about Joshua, it was similar to Burleson when I went to the high school in particular, is that when I ever had issues with a student, academic or otherwise, I could go to the principal, go to vice principal, and they say, "Oh, I'll call his daddy. I know him. I go to church. I golf with him, whatever." It was that small town connections. I didn't have to really go that far to make contact with parents because they were also very involved, and almost all of them would say, "Don't worry, his mind will be right by tomorrow."
And everyone knows everyone.
Right.
It's so interesting that it really is still like a small town.
Burleson ISD has grown so much that some of that has been lost, I'm afraid. That's just the nature of growing towns. But y'all seem to have managed to keep it intact. I guess it helps to have one high school.
I was just about to say that. Having the one high school really makes a difference. And then all of our schools, we're the Owls. It doesn't matter what elementary school, what middle school, we're all one. And that just keeps everybody moving toward just, you're always going to be, go Owls.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. When we opened up Centennial, there was a great deal of competition and resentment even between the two schools. I'm here at BHS, and it's certainly a nice building. But you go over to the Taj Mahal, and over there, and they got all this new stuff and all this space, and you have your own coffee maker? Wow. And that, it's amazing what you'll focus on when you already got that mindset. But it was like we always considered them to be the second trophy wife, and we were the, first wife that, gets the alimony. And so, that kind of thing. And Jonathan will tell you that, you're good friends with Jonathan Moore, right?
I supervise Jonathan. I hate to use that word, but
Well,
he doesn't need any supervision. Nah. But yes, Jonathan is a content specialist for secondary math, and that's my team. So he's wonderful.
Well, I guess I'll start with the technology because there's so much change in that. And that bond issue you just passed hopefully will enhance that. That's what the bonds are for. So I think some people misrepresent bonds thinking they're going to pay the light bill with it or something like that. And that's not it at all. But I will say, I never felt technologically deprived, if that's the word, at BISD. I always had what I needed. It may not have been the cutting edge, but it was close enough for me because I'm not that technically adept, so it was good for me. How much has that changed?
Technology, of course, is always changing. We provide professional development every single year to our teachers to help them understand all the technological devices that we provide them. Every teacher has a Chromebook cart in their classroom, so we are not a one-to-one school district. Kids don't take their devices home. Every teacher has a locker in their classroom with many Chromebook carts, and kids use those during that classroom as needed. Our teachers all have like smart boards that they learn to use instead of the traditional chalkboard. None of those aren't around anymore. We've got the smart devices. So we're very blessed in Joshua SD for all of our students to have those.
You mentioned the chalkboard. When I started in '88 at the middle school in Burleson, they still had chalkboards. And first day I was hired as an emergency replacement in the middle of the first semester, and they gave me some chalk and they never taught me over at UTA how to write on a chalkboard. And so I had to learn how to, because it's a skill. And then we got the whiteboards. I thought, man, we are moving up in the world. When I discovered the use of PowerPoints, I thought I have landed on the moon. But now we had a technology lady named Kim Estes. You know Kim?
Love Kim, yes.
Yeah, and she was so caffeinated all the time. Even though she swore she drank decaf. And she'd go, here's how you do this, boom, 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 boom. And the kids would go, the young teachers would go, oh, sure, of course. And the old teachers are going, how do you turn this on? That was it took a while for us older teachers really to adapt to not just understanding technology, but incorporating technology. And that's, I guess, where you come in. You help, besides just the curriculum, I'm sure you're designing ways or considering ways of how to bring the technology into the classroom itself.
Well, our team, so we actually have an instructional director of instructional technology who also reports to Ms. Augsburger. So my colleague, Julie Hampton, she has a whole team under her of specialists that help to do this, and they go into the teacher's classroom. They make sure that they're up on all the latest things of like not only bringing, it's one thing to say, okay, here's a computer, right, and put the kids in front of the computer, but are we doing it in a way that's truly enhancing their learning? That's the whole point. And so her team makes sure that that's happening.
Right. Well, I haven't seen pen to paper in 10 years now. I teach at Dallas Baptist, and they all bring their devices. And you just have to hope that they're paying attention and all this other stuff. But people say, how do you keep their attention using everybody on a computer? Well, the same way you did before, because they could be writing notes to their girlfriend or whatever just as easily as listening to you or... the first technology challenge they have is keeping the phones out of their hands. Now, the state of law keeps the phones out of the classroom, right?
Yeah.
Has that changed anything for y'all? Because I've known teachers that incorporated the use of phones in their educational instruction practices. I never did, but I didn't because I didn't trust it. But I didn't trust the kids, Oh, yeah, I'm on your website, Mr. Allard. Sure they am, and they're on ESPN or worse. And so... So do y'all incorporate that? How did you get around that?
Yeah, so we were a little, especially at the high school level, because in the past our students were allowed to have their phones out during passing periods, phones out in the cafeteria, in the classroom with teacher permission. So it was a big transition over the summer. We made a lot of plans to make this happen, and we were really worried, like, oh my goodness, we're going to have so many discipline problems, right? It's going to be an issue. And honestly, we've seen the opposite. No, you have a few kids, of course, that want to test the limits, but it's been so interesting that you go on the high school campus now and kids are talking to each other at lunch.
Conversation. What
They're
a
playing
deal.
card games at lunch. It's amazing. They're talking to each other in the hallways during transition periods. It's
It's a different environment.
And I wholeheartedly support that, because even at DB, I'll walk into my classroom and there's about 8 or 9 students already there, and they don't talk to each other. They're on their device, either their phone or the computer.
They're probably texting each other.
Or whatever. And it's like, it's silly things like that. And it's like, in our day, we talked to each other. We had conversation. If I wanted to, we engaged with each other. And they're like, I bet you read a newspaper too, don't you, old man? That kind of thing. How's the AM radio doing in your truck? And, because I was known to be kind of behind the times.
Well, our teachers are definitely reporting much more student engagement because that cell phone is not there being a distraction constantly during the classroom.
Well, you see Josh over there, Mr. Whiz Kid over there, he's thinking he never would have survived in high school with that kind of stuff, would you?
That's not true.
That's not true? Okay.
You can do it, Josh. I have faith in you.
I did it.
I have faith
did
in
do
you.
it. Let's-
Yeah.
Okay. When's the last time you read a newspaper? I mean, a newspaper, not online.
I don't think they make those.
They don't? Well, they
Yeah,
do.
I'm not entirely sure.
See, and one time I was reading a newspaper in class. The Dallas Morning News does Wednesdays and Sundays now, paper. And I had one, a Wednesday paper, and kids look at me. Did you get that from, they thought I got it from an antique store. Honestly, they really thought or it was like an artifact I was bringing to class. I said, this is today's paper. Oh, my grandpa does that. Anyway, but curriculum also incorporates a lot of technology, because I've been involved in curriculum design.
Absolutely, yeah. Textbooks, like physical textbooks, are a thing of the past,
Good.
pretty much. I mean, there are still some out there, but everything's becoming digital now, and it's online, and so that's where our Chromebook cards and just making sure our kids have access has really benefited our district, because we were already ahead of the curve on that.
So when it comes to textbooks, you just use the digital format like Hill College did. I taught for them for many years, and I just left them about close to a year ago. And I just had, 23 years is enough. I did night classes and dual enrollment, that kind of thing. And I never had them get a textbook, because I know what happens to textbooks. You give them at the beginning of the year, they go under the bed, you bring them out at the end of the year, and they go back on the shelf. We got copies that are from like 1970 that look, mint brand new, because they've never been opened.
And you have to think about how students learn these days, and that's definitely not how they learned, because that's not what they're used to. They're used to having that technological device, something that they can easily put their hands on quickly.
Well, this may be an open-ended question, but have y'all had to deal with things like chat, PGT, and AI and things of that nature?
Yes, we use a certain product that our teachers they're taught how to use on how to then teach students how to responsibly use AI in the classroom. And it allows them to roll out piece by piece. As the teacher teaches something, then they're able to open that up, and then kids are allowed to use it. So it's not just completely open where they have access to AI all the time. It's little pieces at a time, so they become responsible users.
And you have to incorporate that with the curriculum, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, we have things built into our curriculum that allows teachers to even do checks of, okay, did you really write this paper? So there's ways that they can check that and look for certain criteria. I don't want to give that away.
Well, Turnitin.com?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of them. There's lots of different things.
At DBU, we use Turnitin.
Yeah.
And I haven't had real problem with that. I know ISD started going to it towards the end of my tenure there. What it did for me is that I had to alter what I had to use for assessments, because if it got to the point where I was having to check too many assessments to see if this was genuinely their work, or is it really just done by AI at the time, or whatever, or is it just a lot of cut and paste kind of thing?
Our teachers are definitely proficient at the lockdown browser as they have assignments for kids, so that we're making sure that they only have access to that particular thing they're supposed to be working on during a test or something they're going to grade.
Well, we used to use something like that too. We could have quizzes or short answers type of things, but see, in 2015, 16, when that became more common, AI wasn't a thing, and we just had to be alert that they weren't surfing the net. And you could tell, even if their computer's not facing, you could tell when they're surfing the net.
The other wonderful thing about technology is there's great software out there for districts to use, and we have a particular program that we use in Joshua ISD, but the teacher from their own device, they're able to track every single student and see what they're on their Chromebook. So if they've given an assignment and they're supposed to be on a particular thing, the teacher can easily see if they've gone onto another website or something like that, or they're chatting with their friends, and so they can easily just shut down the student's computer just from touching a button and never even having to get up.
Well, my wife used to work for BHS and then later CHS in the credit recovery program, and they do it online. And she had that capability. She could pull up anybody's computer and see what they were looking at, and she would, young man, it's time to get back to work. And then, the tone that I'm very familiar with. And then if they kept doing it, she was supposed to, shut them down and write them up or whatever else. And it actually recorded the number of times a kid had been shut down and all this other stuff. It gave them real-time data. So there was that going on. But, the thing about it is technology is great and it's an enhancement, but it's not a replacement for instruction. And I think the better districts, and I'm sure Josh will qualify with that, does not see it as a replacement, but as a tool, an enhancement to instruction.
Absolutely. And matter of fact, we encourage our teachers to limit and, not just put them on a computer all the time, because we know that that's not best practice for students. They need that attention. They need hands-on learning. They need all the different types of learning in order to be successful. And so the computer is just that. It's a tool for learning that's used at appropriate times.
Well, I had some colleagues that reluctantly brought in technology, and I had other colleagues I think overused it, because they thought this as, legitimately they thought it was a way of connecting with the students. But the truth of the matter is there's still old school methods that still work, and technology can make it better for you. But nothing really beats one-on-one or, classroom engagement. That, and I'm sure Josh has a very extensive online program for various purposes, but that one-on-one connection a student has with a teacher is what really makes a lot of difference. And the one-on-one or one-on classroom connection a teacher can have with students and have a conversation. I would use the Socratic circles. I'm sure y'all are familiar with those. And the kids, the first time I told them about it, they thought, well, okay, but they got to be where they preferred that because you're having these conversations with each other about the material, and they're,
Yeah, I was a science teacher. I taught science and history, actually, but I couldn't imagine just sitting my kids in front of a computer all the time to do science, right? Like, I want them to get their hands dirty. I want them to try things and to fail. It's okay to fail once in a while, too. Not fail my class, but fail at the experiment or fail at, to try a new thing.
Well, I taught economics.
Take a risk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I taught economics for a long time. And what I would do, we do the supply and demand curves and all that business. I'd get sidewalk chalk and we'd go outside and do it that. And the kids liked it because it was different than just either doing it on a computer or something like that. It was, something they didn't. I know they weren't doing, third grade. They were not doing supply and demand graphs, but they were doing sidewalk chalk in third grade, and it kind of was fun for them.
Yeah, well, as adults, I don't want to sit in front of a computer for 8 or 9 hours a day. That's draining.
It is. And we already are isolated enough, so many other things. So particularly the young people, it's a real problem. I noticed this with the rise of, Facebook isn't as popular with the young people as it used to be, but TikTok and Instagram and whatever else. Josh probably knows some of these outfits better than I do. Those are just the main ones, right, Josh?
Yeah, those are the big three.
But you have others, right?
There are definitely others.
Yeah, and so they get on there, and that's how they talk with each other, and they don't socialize with each other. And so, I think technology is a great and wonderful thing, but we need to do it like every good, great, wonderful thing in moderation, I suppose.
Yes.
And but to finish up with the technology just for a moment, what is the latest thing, if you will, that Josh was rolling out? Because that bond was specifically for something. It wasn't just, hey, we need some more money and we'll tell you later, because that's not the way bonds work. What was it that y'all were looking for in that bond?
Part of technology is not just student devices. It's also devices for our teachers and cybersecurity protections and safe cameras and things like that. So some of our bond money is being used to update all of our cameras so that we can make sure that then students are safe. We're able to have cameras in multiple places around the campus, so all of that can be easily seen.
Is that part of your responsibility? See, I was kind of thinking it was mostly technology related to instruction and education, but you also handle, I guess, the
I also
operation of the
oversee
schools.
the whole technology department. I have wonderful people who work for me,
Mm-hmm.
Chad Tate, Julie Hampton, but there's a whole group of just the technology guys who go out and take care of our campuses and make sure
Oh,
that
yeah. I knew those
everything's
guys
working.
well. I don't know how to do this. Here, Allard, click. Okay, you're fixed. Oh, okay. I always feel kind of dumb, but as far as though all that high technology and all, it's it ain't cheap. And I'm glad y'all's bond passed because people talk about security and they talk about these other things, but let's put your money where your mouth is, guys. There's one last question I'd have also is about the platform y'all use for grades and for attendance, all this. We use Skyward. What do y'all use?
We use Skyward.
You Skyward, okay. So y'all still, I guess it's been updated, I'm quite sure.
It has been updated. There's so many other programs that work with Skyward where you can get grade pass back. So if you're using this software program over here where kids are taking a quiz or whatever, then it talks with Skyward and it goes right in the grade book. So
Right.
teachers love that.
My daughter, for quite some time, worked for RenWeb. Are you familiar with them?
Yes.
RenWeb is primarily with private schools and nonprofits. I don't know what the software difference would be, but there you are. That was their clientele. But, we use Skyward, and I liked it. It was easy enough once you learned it. It's like Hill College was really bad about this. It's like, okay, you understand how this technology works, right? We're changing it, right? Just when you get comfortable with it, we're going to change. DVU does the same thing. It's like, okay, I finally figured it out how to do these things, and now you're changing platforms all over again. We use Blackboard primarily at DVU, but we went from Blackboard to something else, and Hill. I'm like, why can't you just leave things alone? But there you go.
We try to be gracious to our teachers and allow, keep things for as long as you can so that it's not something new every year that you're rolling out to them.
Well, I know, but there are new programs that come out with new things, and you got to keep up to date and that kind of thing. Because I forget the name of the first program we used for grades and attendance, but it's like, very simple compared to what Skyward was. And Skyward is really, I don't think that complex. But the first we had prior to that, was, in comparison, I felt like we were drawing with, caves or something. So as far as the curriculum matter, we talked about this right before the show about teachers' involvement. I helped write curriculum for ISD several times. The administration at that time, the problem I had with them is not so much that they would not let me put stuff in the curriculum as how they wanted it arranged. And if they didn't like the way it was arranged and how it was presented, there was going to be some conflict. How much input do the teachers have in Joshua about this kind of thing?
A lot. So we did talk about it previously. In Joshua, we are a PLC district, so Professional Learning Communities
Right. We had those.
That's our huge initiative that we kind of center most of our work around. And so the main theory behind that is that we believe all students can learn, and everyone has to believe that. And yes, all students can learn. And then that teachers are the experts. So we know that when teachers go behind closed doors, I can hand you this curriculum all day, but when you go behind closed doors and you shut your door, you're going to teach it the way that you see best to teach it to your students.
Absolutely. I'm glad somebody said that out loud because
I'll say it.
All right.
Yeah. So in Joshua, we believe, why not embrace that? We know it's going to happen anyways, right? So you are the expert. And we provide you with the tools necessary, but because you're the expert, you also can say, this would work better for my kids, and you have to teach the standards.
Right.
We all teach the same standards.
The TEKS AP curriculum is much broader than the TEKS. A lot of people 10 years ago were very upset about Common Core and all that. Common Core was a step below what we were required to teach by the state of Texas. So I said, people, you're getting worked up for nothing.
Right.
Because, and that kind of thing. So, but it kind of went by the boards. But one of the things that inhibited curriculum cooperation, if you will, was, you have to have a really trusting working relationship between faculty and administration. And I'm going to just be real frank, this is 20 years ago, the administration wanted a very particular way that material to be organized and presented, and on a certain day. That was what really stuck in our craw.
We don't do that.
Okay, good.
We say you're teaching, so as a team, let's say we're the science team, the three of us, we all would agree that this is the order we're going to teach our standards in. These are the must-know standards. Like, our kids cannot leave us without knowing these things, and we identify those things. We're going to make sure that they know these things. Then we say, okay, during this, we put it to the calendar then. During this 9 weeks, here's what we're going to teach. And then we come up with a common assessment that all of us are going to give at the end of that 9-week period.
You said 9 weeks. Y'all are on a quarter system? Okay.
We are now that we've switched to the 4-day work week.
Yeah, which apparently is a big hit.
And our scores went
Pal's
up.
over here shaking his head. You bet. Yeah.
Yes, and our scores went up.
They did. With the 9 week,
Yeah.
we're switching to the 4 days. This is our second year, but last year we increased our accountability. We increased in attendance. We, increased attendance. We decreased discipline referral. So many positive things came out of it.
Well, I'll have to ask if other districts are taking note of that, because when I was in high school, we went to 5-day week, but we did the quarter system. And what that meant for us is some people I knew my senior year graduating in November, and I thought, wow, what a great thing that is. But anyway, when it goes to the curriculum, the issue with the curriculum is that when they put a system, what they wanted to do 20 years ago in Burleson was basically I'd get up, I go to my classroom, I turn on, click on the computer and see, okay, this is February 13th, this is what I'm teaching today. And every teacher that teaches what I do across the district is going to teach the same thing that day. And here's the quiz you're going to give. And here's the test you're going to give. They're already been pre-made almost. Now, they were made by teachers or by curriculum people, but it was so rigid that I thought,
But your kids might be different than my kids,
Exactly,
right? Or we might be, I had to slow down because my kids weren't getting it. So,
Had to do some reteach.
yeah.
well, but they also thought the advantage of that was if I was out for a day, that's my sub could pull it up and do my job. I'm like, okay, thanks. What am I here for then? If we could get somebody that's a sub to do my job, then all that schooling went out the window. That there was a great deal of resentment about that, and it was a great deal of resentment, like the material was not chosen so much by us, and that was a real problem. Now, that being said, when Dr. Jimerson came in, he greatly loosened a lot of that. There is still now you want to make sure that teacher A, teacher B, and teacher C are all teaching their students a similar curriculum, right? That's not the issue, but it was so regimented that it's like what are we even bothering?
There's no creativity.
Not a lick, and what if I'm out for 6 weeks with the pregnancy, or something like that. You were making it really difficult. But Jimerson has loosened quite a bit of that up. You probably know Leanne Arthur, I guess, right? And
Yes.
I've known her for many years, and she's adapted to all the new changes. One of the things that we did that I now see is more beneficial, but did not see it beneficial then, was something called Unit by Design, and I was not happy with it that much. Now I see it differently, more globally, but. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I've heard of this. I've never lived it. Have you, Jolene?
I have not, no.
The essential
know the
essence
theory.
of it is that you create the test first and work backwards.
Well, we do that.
Yeah,
We just
and
call it something different. We
right.
work with the end in mind. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's the deal.
Yeah.
It's like I went through so many of these seminars, and in service, I'm telling you, they said, okay, Allard, you can spend 2 weeks in a federal prison or 2 weeks in service. There'd be some thought about it, because I hated in service. And, but it was always the same thing. Oh, we got a new way of doing things.
Well, it's all the same with a new label, usually.
Right, exactly right.
But I mean, working with the end in mind is, I don't know, to me it makes sense. Like, okay, where do I want my kids to be at the end of this? And then once I know that, okay, now how am I going to get them there, right? Like, what do you already know that I don't need to focus on? And then what do I need to focus on that you don't know or you're struggling with?
Well, by design also would, focus on like big picture items, the big ideas and things like that, and what kind of questions you're going to be asking, and what, and on and on and on. And it's like, okay, when I first started at the high school in 1990, we went through a paradigm shift, and it's very similar to this. And I often thought that a lot of these things were done for all other reasons besides the presentation of curriculum. That this is a way of, administrators leaving their mark kind of thing. And so it was very tough to sell. And so, but when the teachers do have a lot of the say in how it's going to be presented and what's going to be presented, a lot of those issues don't exist.
We're having a professional development even on Monday.
Yay.
That is, we do it workshop style every year, and our teachers are the presenters, and they sign up to teach each other, and it is very popular. Our teachers love this day in our district. So,
Well,
And they get to,
wait, you said teachers love in service?
they do love this day
This day.
every year.
Are you paying
Yeah.
them giving triple time? Or are you providing lunch, open bar? What is
we
this?
do have food trucks.
You know, what is this? You know, to get teachers to enjoy in service. Oh, my Lord.
I think it's because they're learning from their colleagues,
Right.
and they get to choose what they learn. You know, they get to pick what they're interested in for the day.
Yeah, there's like over 50 sessions offered, and they get to pick their 6 sessions that they're doing for the day. So they get to design it based on what they teach, what age group they teach, all of that. So it really helps to tailor their learning. And then they get to go hear their colleagues and see what wonderful things that they're doing in their classroom. Because again, as a teacher, you're very busy. You hardly have time to step out and see what other people are doing. So this gives them that opportunity to see what great things are going on.
One thing I learned very quickly is that teachers are thieves. They will steal the good
Yes,
ideas.
we do. Why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. I guarantee you, I was thrown in the deep end of the pool. Like I mentioned, I was an emergency hire in mid-October of 1988. 7th grade Texas history, 100 or 210 students in 6 classes.
Oh.
Yeah. I still wake up sometimes, when Robin's like, my wife's like, it's over, don't worry about it. But and then I went to taught the 9th grade the next year and had like 190 and 95 students. And 9th grade is where usually the hormones are in high gear and they don't know how to handle them. And you get a lot more discipline issues than I got when I was teaching seniors and juniors.
Yeah, I was the assistant principal at a 9th grade campus.
And you lived to tell about it.
I
Good
was
for you.
busy.
Yes, you were.
I was busy with discipline.
Yes, you were. Which campus was that?
And Joshua.
We have a separate 9th grade campus.
We
so
sure wanted
they're across
one.
the street from the high school.
We wanted that. And when we went to, y'all talk about a second high school, we said, why don't we just do what Josh was doing or Crowley's doing? And it didn't work out that way, obviously. You know, it's too late now.
Too late.
But no, it took a while for us to adjust to be a 2 high school district. I don't know if they're even talking about that in Joshua, but I would advise.
Not yet. We're
Not
not
yet.
there
That
yet.
is-
How about it? No, Kyle's shaking his head. You know, no.
We're
That
not
is
there
not
yet.
something that right now our school board or our stakeholders are really interested in. Our demographers do say that right now we have a little over 6,000 students. In the next 7 years, we'll have over 7,000 students. So we'll grow 1,000 students in about 7 to 8 years.
And they're mostly elementary, I'll bet.
A lot of elementary, but I mean, you just don't know. We have so many new neighborhoods actually that are in the city of Burleson, but are in
Right.
Joshua ISD. So
Right.
those new neighborhoods that will be going in over the next little bit of time.
Well, I was talking to your superintendent about that last time. I was congratulated on how shrewd he was to put all the new schools in the city of Burleson. That way, city of Joshua says, "Oh, that's not our problem with the infrastructure and the water and this." And but that is where the growth is. Of course, that
Right.
big Chisholm Trail development's coming is going to really blow both our city and your schools up. And so, it's better to have these problems than declining town problems.
Yes, yeah. We actually visited a school district a couple of weeks ago that had declining enrollment over the last 10 years. Enrollment's been declining. They're closing schools and
Right.
things like that. And so it is so thankful and blessed to be on the other end of that, of knowing that we're growing and preparing for a future for kiddos that their homes haven't even been built yet.
Right. And I went to high school in a town that was blowing up like ours are, Plano. I graduated in 1980, so I just aged myself. But when I went to start in elementary school in 1974 at 6th grade, I was going to a school in an incomplete building because we had to put them somewhere, right? And that school now has been closed because it changed different graphics. But they were building so many schools in Plano and we had such huge classes. And, my graduating class was like 1,240.
Wow.
And, and I'd sit in a class of 45 or 50 kids. So I went off to Baylor, that was nothing new for me. It wasn't like a big deal. Whereas some
Yeah,
of
you
my,
were already used to it.
yeah, my small town friends really had to adjust. But that's the issue. And the thing is, Plano, if I recall, was the first high school to have a computer programming class. The old note card, punch cards thing, right? You ever
Yep.
you seen that probably in a museum now?
Right.
But they would create these programs with punch cards and run them through the machine, and I don't know what they were doing, but like, wow, this is cutting edge. And we had a Betamax recorder, and then we thought we were, man,
Cutting
we are
edge.
way out there. So there you go. I guess another question about the curriculum is, I know the state puts a lot of restrictions or requirements on it, but I never really felt that constrained about the TEKS. All right, but that still is the guiding light, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And has that changed much since I've been gone the last decade or so?
The state's way of changing that is they're writing their own curriculum and packaging it in a way that forces many school districts' hands to buy their curriculum, because the way that we're given money, it's through the instructional materials allotment. You get extra money per student if you buy the state's materials. So it really ties your hands as far as like an instructional leader of like what we're going to purchase, because obviously I have this $40 per student that I get if I buy the state's materials. And so many school districts, including Burleson ISD, has bought that. And in Joshua, we have not done that, and I don't intend to do that. I still want to be able to give our teachers voice and choice in what instructional materials that we are choosing.
Well, and you made a point that it didn't matter all this stuff going on outside. Greg Abbott and sitting in my classroom making sure I teach the right thing. It really, you do have to rely on the teachers to do the job and do it with integrity and all that other business. And so it didn't, all this other stuff is to me back in the day was outside noise. Because when I shut the door, if I didn't do the job, if I did the job, it's, up to me. And there's really nothing that the state could do about it.
Well, and there are so many checks and balances, if you will, in place to help to ensure that, right?
Sure.
So there's a STAR test, obviously,
Right.
but then also, of course, your districts have their local created assessments that people are looking at and talking about and studying data on. And, there are just so many measures of student success. To say that this is the only measure of student success, I don't think that truly does our school districts justice, because that looks different in every classroom.
Right.
A kid's success in choir looks very different than a student's success in science, right?
Yeah, right. Sing good? Okay, get an A.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we have to trust that our teachers are the experts and that the majority of people are there for the right reason.
I would concur. I would assert that if you took away all the testing and all the other stuff, 95% of the teachers would still be doing the job, because, and as good a fashion, as a high quality of fashion as they can, because some people don't. They think people get into teaching for other reasons. So what most of the teachers I know got into it for, and that was to change lives and
Absolutely.
and things of that nature. They weren't getting in it for the 3 summers off, because I never had 3 summers off. I always had to do stuff.
Yeah.
I maybe not have as busy a day, but I still had stuff to do for school. And so almost, I would say maybe, there's this guy or that gal or whatever over my career that had no business being in the classroom. But I honestly would say 95% plus really didn't need those motivators to do the job well.
Absolutely.
Because they got into education for reasons that are more intangible than just. I bet the biggest thing I did enjoy about being a teacher, 2 things, I guess. I did like having the holidays with my kids when they were younger, and we had a fairly relaxed. I don't want to say relaxed. That's not the word, but. Non-restrictive absence policy, because there was times that I had to miss for kids, and I got pneumonia once and that kind of stuff, and it wasn't a big crisis. But as far as like, did I need the whip at the state, so to speak, to make sure I taught this good? That never happened.
Yeah, that you have. I mean, I was a secondary teacher like you, and I had 220 kids' lives in my hands every day.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, in Fort Worth, we had big classes.
Yeah.
And I went in every day and did my very best, and I fumbled sometimes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
some days I'd come back and be like, oh, we got to redo that.
No, it's interesting because you're high school and you're elementary, but a lot of the issues are the same.
Absolutely.
And I've had elementary school teacher friends, and we compare notes or whatever else, and they deal with some stuff that I didn't have to deal with. You see in a 7 or 8 year old with obvious trauma and things like that. That's hard to deal with.
Right. Or students who are struggling to read, students who are struggling with just behavior issues or things that maybe issues that haven't been diagnosed yet. that usually by the time they reach secondary, there's many of these things that have kind of smoothed out, or at least we've put them into programs or with teachers and things that's really helped them. But at elementary, it's kind of a, when they're walking our door for the first time, it's, we just, you're going to teach every one of those kids, and you're going to help their families work through any issues that are going on.
Well, I couldn't be an elementary teacher at all.
I loved it.
Yeah, you
Kindergarten's the best.
You couldn't either. And people would talk to me and they said, I don't see how you go in the room with a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah, they're bigger than you.
Yeah, and a lot of them were, but I very rarely had problems like that. The biggest problem I had was apathy sometimes, and I had a lot of fire under them and stuff like that. But I didn't get a lot of back talk or abuse every now and then. But you could handle it. Mm-hmm. But I know Fort Worth may be different. But because I know that some of the schools are pretty rough.
Well, I mean, all kids need their basic needs met, and if you're in any district where those aren't, you have to tackle that first. But I found in Fort Worth that once the kids knew you and respected you and knew you cared about them, man, they were loyal.
Yep.
Oh, the kids were the most loyal students I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
When they knew that you loved and cared about them, they were loyal and they wanted to please you.
Yeah. And that was my experience too, because after I left BHS, I went to Southwest Christian, which is a fine school and nice kids, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't need me that much because they already had people in their lives.
Right.
There's fewer of them came from broken homes. Almost none of them came from economically distressed homes. Yeah. And if they had problems, their parents had the wherewithal and the connections to try to treat those issues. Whereas a lot of my kids at BHS, they were on their own.
Yeah.
And they really appreciated somebody that would reach out to them.
Yeah, it's all about, like, I know in elementary school, I kept a snack drawer, I kept extra clothes, just whatever was needed to help make sure that their needs were met. If I knew that they didn't change they were in the same clothes as they had yesterday, have a little extra set. You go in the bathroom, change clothes.
Yeah, because Jolene didn't tell you this, but she worked in Houston ISD.
I did work in Houston ISD.
She started her career in Houston ISD. So
at a middle school there, that was rough. And so coming to Joshua ISD was a blessing.
So much better. And I had teachers, friends of mine that would come from other districts, and you'd hear the veterans grumble, and they said, "Look, let me tell you about what really a hard time is, all right? You guys quit your sniveling over there and that kind of thing." Or, we had teachers that went from public to private school at Southwest Christian, and they would tell you these stories like, well, I was held at gunpoint and all this other stuff, and they're not joking.
Right.
And so that's one reason why they left. But
I have a lot of stories.
Yeah, I bet you do. And I had, in my 28 years, I bet twice, I think, I thought that it was going to get physical with trying to deal with the kid, but it didn't get there. But I could see it going there, and so that was, So I had a really, really great experience at BHS, and I think of it. Some days are better than others, right? But I still think of it with a lot of fondness, And I think a lot of fondness to my colleagues. When we were designing curriculum together, we tried to make it fun, And if you're dealing with your material, that's the biggest difference for me between elementary and high school. For me, is that you're dealing with a much more advanced level of curriculum material, history and economics or whatever else. And if you're with other people that enjoy it like you do, it's not a bad day.
Right.
So. So, and this is what's coming up next Monday, I guess, you said?
Yes. Yes, our district GT day.
We did have another day that we do alignment of curriculum from secondary, from 7th to 12th. And it's like, and we, here's what's taught at 7th, and here's what's taught at 8th, and all this. And so you could try to build on the previous teachers. And y'all were both around for COVID. You know what a disruption that was for all of that. Try to build on.
I try to block that out.
Yeah. Well, my friends that were still in school, teaching school, they said it was a nightmare.
It was truly the hardest thing in my whole educational career. Getting through that of just, one thing in Joshua ISD, we still came to work. All of the people at the central office, we came to work every single day, and
wearing masks.
Yes. We wore masks. We separated from one another, but we would all sit in a big room and we would try to decide, okay, what are we doing? What online curriculum are we doing? Who's teaching it? What communication are we putting out to parents? It was just such a heavy lift, and I just hope that never happens again.
Well, me too. Because, like I saw what was going on with my peers, because this was 4 years after I'd left BHS, and it was just a mess. And then the next year they tried to open the schools up, but there was like, if you had some sort of objections, you didn't have to come. And so there only about half the students were there. My wife was, basically monitoring like 5 different classes in one of our bigger spaces. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You know.
There was, across the state, and Joshua ISD felt it too, there was a dip in teacher retention for sure after that. Like a lot of people just decided, okay, I'm retiring or I'm moving on to another career. This is just, it's too much.
But have y'all seen any long-term impact on that?
I think we're getting past the hump of that now. Obviously for several years after that, a lot of children coming back who stayed at home for several years. Like their parents were either didn't want to send them back, had homeschooled them, things like that. And so coming back into public school after not really having any socialization for months and months and months. So lots of behavior issues, lots of students who couldn't read. So a lot of difficulties there. So putting in a lot of the federal funds that the government did give us, using hiring them to have extra interventionists and things like that to work more one-on-one with students to help them grow and get back on course, back to the grade level they needed to be on.
The biggest problem my wife had in monitoring those 5 classes is that their teachers would be at home, but the kids were in the classroom, or they'd be doing it all on Zoom. So half the kids were at home, the teacher was at home, but the other 14 or 15 kids of that class were there in the building and sitting in that open space. And as a teacher, I couldn't even imagine trying to ride herd on all those kids from a distance. I barely held on when I'm standing in front of them.
Right.
And it's a mess. And also, I really felt for the math teachers, because more than my subject even, if they didn't get algebra, they're not going to get algebra 2 and geometry and all this other stuff. Oh, what a mess.
That is where we saw the biggest learning loss was in our
Mathematics.
math, and it's across the state. But I will say in Joshua, we've been very proactive and put some plans together to try to remediate that, and we've been pretty successful. I mean,
and even during COVID, when we came back after that and came back that next year, we did like the hybrid model. We let some kids stay home, but at that time we were on a 6 weeks period. But each time, if you were failing at the end of the 6 weeks, we required you to come back to school. You weren't going to get to stay at home anymore. You weren't holding up your end of the bargain, so you had to come back. And so I think that helped kids be a little bit more successful there.
Right. Well, we're all veterans of this system. One thing I noticed a great deal of difference from the beginning of my career to the end of my career was the level of state involvement, particularly around the early 2000s. I started seeing a lot of change. Then you have No Child Left Behind, but you have other state mandates and initiatives and directives and commands or whatever you want, all the same, right? And that was the biggest difference, because my first decade there at BHS, we were kind of autonomous. We did the job because we did the job, not because state of Texas was, scouring us or whatever. But beginning with the Perry administration and continuing with the Abbott administration, the state of Texas has gotten more and more and more involved with just the daily functioning of schools. And that was a real issue. And then you had the federal government get involved in student conduct. It's a harder job now than it was then.
I always joke that we have people who've never been in education other than when they went to school making rules for educators.
Exactly right.
If Jolynn would run for office,
there you go.
I'm trying.
Really?
Not happening.
Are you serious?
No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing her.
Maybe,
I have opinions for sure.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that when I retired from BHS, a couple of my peers said, "Hey, you got to run for school board." So, I'll give it some thought. I'll go tell my wife. I didn't even finish the sentence. I didn't get out of the dugout with my bat, so to speak. She shut that down hard.
Not happening.
Not happening, because I've seen what happens in JISD school board meetings. Sometimes they're not Sunday school.
They have gotten so much better. So we really appreciate that. And we have an amazing supportive school board. And so thankful for that.
I've
For
met-
those people who volunteer their time. We always get the parents or the angry parent who wants to come up and talk to the school board, thinking that they're somewhere here in the office, at the central office.
Right.
Like, no, they're just volunteers and they don't get paid. And
they have real
come-
jobs.
Right.
Well, and I've gotten to know a lot of our school board members very well, and I would say the vast majority of them were sincere in their efforts. That's not to say I agreed with everything they decided. I wish they had chosen B instead of A, but I'd never really doubted most of them's sincerity that they were trying to find the right solution.
Right. Doing what's best for kids.
Yeah, and sometimes they were right and I was wrong on the choice, but almost all of them I've known well have been genuine servants of the community.
Yes.
And it's like our city council. Most of them have been servants of the community.
Right.
We have a really good city council now, and so it makes things a lot easier. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up with a couple of nonprofits and then let y'all finish the show for us. And unless Kyle wants to jump in, no, still good.
Kyle, come on.
I know. Yeah. Public relations. Absolutely. He's cracking me up over there. So how did Washington State do last weekend in the football? Bye. Okay. So are we. So that means a good week for Baylor.
Count that as a win.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Anyway, we got the Toys for Tots coming up, guys. It's going to be December 3rd at 6 through 9:30. Here's the thing. It says Burleson ISD Stadium. It's Elk Stadium, dadgummit. All right. It's
I'm with you.
But that's, those centennial people got all snooty about it. But anyway, Burleson ISD Stadium, 6 to 9:30. Drop by. It's going to be Santa's going to be there. Jack Matson and his Marine Corps League is going to be there. They were on the show about 2 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah, it's about right, 2 weeks ago. And these guys do wonderful work. The Toys for Tots are a really big deal. And they're going to have some of the performing groups from the 2 high schools and the middle school singing and dancing and carrying on. And they're going to have some of the athletes unloading cars and their jerseys. It's just going to be, it really is, it's kind of very festive, It's a nice time. And you're doing something nice because, this is a tough time. The economy is what it is. I'm trying to remember last time we had an economy that was so explosive that I didn't have to worry about it. But it's a tough time for a lot of people. I do some work with the nonprofits, and that's another side note. Those food banks still need help, guys. I don't know that we signed the bill last night and they're going to open up the government, yada yada yada. People are still going without, so hit the food banks in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, Toys for Tots, make it a priority. Also, we Center for ASD. Are y'all familiar with this outfit?
Yes.
Okay. They do great work, and they're having a Christmas ball, and it's going to also be supportive for the Toys for Tots. How the toys get distributed is through Crowley House of Hope, which is about 90 feet from this office here. I mean, they're just one block over. And also Harvest House and also Fountains Church here in Crowley. Mm-hmm. And they help collect them. They put them in a warehouse. The groups that are going to be distributing will make their requests, I guess, and then the people who have signed up for toys will come by and get them, and they get to choose, and that's a big deal. And the Center for ASD, I've had them on the show many times, and they, we're lucky to have a group that deals with people on the spectrum. That's another thing about the curriculum I learned when I started. People on the spectrum had their own classes. By the time I was done, they were sitting right in front of me.
Yes.
And most of the time, it was not that big a problem. If they were that much behind, then they had other resources at their disposal. But most of the time, these kids that were diagnosed as autistic could function in my classroom. And so that's another thing I kind of adapted to. And so anyway, the Center for ASD is going to be doing this on December 13th. It's going to be at the Loft Rustic Creek Ranch, which is Jellystone, okay? So it's a big deal. So bring toys, bring your dancing shoes, all the above. I don't know if there's anything else going on. Is there, Josh?
Not that I know of. No, I think that's the only 2 things in December we got so far.
So far, yeah. Well, December, most of the stuff's done in October, November, because Christmas is busy.
Right.
And y'all got kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very busy.
And I'm telling you, I don't care how old Garrett is, he wants a toy for Christmas, all right?
They never grew up.
The most disappointing Christmas I had was when I turned 14 and I started getting clothes.
Oh, boring.
I want a G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. You know? What do you want for Christmas, Josh?
Oh, man. All the stuff I want is a little bit too expensive for like a single gift. So I just save money and call it a day from there.
Yeah.
And Kyle, I don't know, what do you want for Christmas? Camera stuff?
That's expensive too, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle and my husband, they're both photographers. Yeah, they
Now, you
love
said you were a
music.
travel writer or some sort, or a travel blogger?
Yes,
Yeah.
Michelle. Her and her husband are great.
I have 2 travel websites and social media
Well,
companies.
well, give us the addresses.
Okay. So you can check us out, That Texas Couple. Follow us, a couple from Texas, as we travel around the world. Or Totally Texas Travel, where we do just that, travel in our state.
You know, that's what I want to do with my wife when she's finally retired as of this past summer. And we want to go. You don't have to go to Switzerland for a vacation. There's so much stuff here in Texas. You know,
You check out Michelle's blogs and websites.
Yeah, we're on
and
all
have
social
the
media, blog, all the things.
she wants to go to Fredericksburg, I
I
believe.
love Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My cousin is a pastor down there. She's a
Okay.
pastor of a Methodist church down there. And she says, come on down. They got all this stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
For
Yes.
sure. December's a great time to go.
You could tell she's a Methodist because she knows where the good wine bars are.
Right.
Fredericksburg.
You know, she's Baptist. We would know. We just would tell.
Right.
You know, so.
Can't talk about that.
Yeah, well, no, I'm a Baptist, so I can make the jokes. You know, it's not that we don't drink, we just don't pay. And so, anyway, Josh, thanks for what you're doing. Monday, check the times. I may be on at noon instead of 11 on Monday, but I'll have Chris Fletcher on, the mayor. I don't know if y'all heard, but there's a big controversy in Burleson these days.
I've been seeing that on the news.
Yeah, well, it's a great deal of hair pulling, really not for much, because I think there's a lot of aspects of this. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, listening audience, I'm talking about where they sell beer at Chisenhall Park, the baseball fields. There's a lot of aspects of it that are being greatly distorted in Facebook. I know that's hard to believe.
I can't believe
You
that
know, I
there would
read
be
it, you know.
wrong information out there.
Those
Yeah.
influencers.
Yeah, I know. It's well, I think some people like to stir the pot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of facts out there that are misunderstood, and they think that, okay, you know, it's going to not only be available, it's going to be mandatory you buy a beer or something stupid like that. So anyway, and then on Thursday I got a double header because I wanted to make sure Victoria Johnson also got to weigh in on this, because we were talking about it, and she said, you know, what you're seeing is not anything what we're talking about. And so we need to clarify that. So she'll be on at 10, and right after that, Colin Gregory's coming on. He's our police community outreach person, and he's going to be talking about online threats to young people, you know, social media and all that other stuff. So there you go. Some
Very
good stuff.
serious.
Well, I have Colin on about every 6 weeks, and he always has really good material. But that is very serious, and that's something I'm sure you deal with. Okay.
We had a couple phishing scams last week. Some people clicked on something, and then it automatically sent emails to hundreds of students asking for their personal identifiable information.
Yeah.
Kids responded to that, put in information about their banking and things like that. So it's serious.
Well, I remember when we first started getting emails, somebody sent us some kind of Trojan or whatever they call those things, some spyware or whatever, and they had to basically shut us down for 2 days. And it's like,
How do we work?
What? You know, how can I work with no email? You know,
Right.
I mean, I'm gonna have to talk to the kids. I don't know. No, I can't do it. So y'all finish this off. You want to go first?
Sure.
Okay. Just tell us what what's going on with Josh ISD in terms of technology, and what people that are thinking that to move there or are currently living there can expect.
Well, we would obviously love to have you in Joshua ISD. Super excited about all of our programs that we offer. Some of the things just extra, besides just all the technology things we offer, we have robotics for even our elementary students that all the way through high school. Our kids are super competitive at it, and we have an annual competition where our high school kids come together and help our elementary kids in their programming robots and learning how just learning from how to write programs, and that's just exciting for them to watch these kids at such a young age to be able to do that.
Hey, Michelle.
Well, I also help oversee the CTE program, our Career and Tech Ed program. And so we're super excited that we offer 16 pathways in Joshua ISD where you can come and get certified and go start your career if that's what you choose to do instead of college.
Can you arrange with Kyle to come back? And I know December's not a good month. I don't know if January is, but January or February?
Sure, and Kyle can talk.
Because I'd like to talk about the CTE
Oh,
program.
I'd love to come back and talk to you about
okay.
CTE.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I could even bring my CTE coordinator with
Yes.
me.
Who would that be?
Christy Clifton. So she and
another BHS graduate
yeah,
or
well,
or-
JHS, Joshua girl. She's a Joshua girl.
Okay,
We
no
raised
refugee.
her. We raised her.
We raised her and kept her, but she and I do the CTE program, and so we'd love to come talk to you about that.
And that was one of our bond projects. So our whole CTE, we're building a whole new wing and a new building for them, and that'll be done in about a year and a half. And so
Yeah.
fantastic to watch that.
Well, why don't you
expand.
both come back about after the new year and bring this young lady with you, and because I can accommodate a fourth, and we could just have a real swell time.
Oh, we would love to
Love
talk about
it.
it.
All right.
Yes.
So are you taking notes over there, Kyle? Wake up.
He's got it.
All right, he's got
Kyle's on it. He remembers everything. But, we just have so many great things going on. We have kids graduating their associate's degree in Joshua ISD. We have programs for all kids. Like, doesn't matter what you're interested in, we've got you. And so that's what I love about our district. I tell Jolene all the time, if you want me to leave, you're going to have to fire me because I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving.
Gripping you barricade yourself in your office,
She used to joke, and she would tell me once in a while, you're fired, and I just kept showing back up. So I don't know.
You lock yourself in a door to come get you. You
Yeah.
say hello to my little friend.
Yeah.
Is that how it works? Okay.
so,
Well,
but-
no, I'll arrange with Kyle here, because I like to see both y'all back, and this young lady, I've already forgotten her name, but
Christy.
whatever. Christy, okay. Josh, try to stay out of trouble this weekend. I don't want to read about you in the news again.
Again.
Well,
Oh, you saw the first time?
yeah.
Oh,
we
shoot.
don't want to talk about that here.
No, I'll try my best.
And Kyle, thank you for bringing these aboard. And y'all have a good weekend. And I'll see you on Monday with the mayor. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. Looking forward to it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks.